Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Bach. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning here with the City of North Charleston. I've been with the city about 8 years now, and I'm here to talk to you about the ADU amendment. And this is Eileen.
Hi, my name is Eileen Duffy. I'm a project manager in the planning department. I've been with the city about 18 years and in this department 13 years.
And we'll apologize in advance. Like Ryan said, we had a short notice on this. Tim unfortunately was not able to make it today, but we're going to do our best to share some information with you all. And that being said, we'll just go ahead and get started. STRs.
Okay. All right. So I have been working with STRs and permitting in the city for about 3 years. So I'm going to go over some resources for you. This is the city's website. If you haven't been, we've released a new website. It's probably been 8 or 9 months ago now. It is got great graphics and pictures, but also a really great search bar. I don't really look for web pages anymore. I usually just use this this dialogue to search for short-term rentals. Okay. And then you just click on short-term rental permit. And this page goes through our requirements for short-term rental permits. It has our current ordinance, and then it walks through the steps. So if you have clients who are looking to get a permit for an STR, this is the place to direct them to, that they can walk through, look at the conditions. This is a link to our application portal. This is a list of the things that the applicants need to provide it through our application system. After they do that and staff has reviewed it, they will then get inspections, need to obtain a business license, and then we'll issue that STR permit and decal. So that's kind of the application process, but what we're really probably going to talk mostly about is, as you will have heard, the city recently capped STR permits. If you're ever looking to see what that cap looks like, what the text looks like, it is linked right here at the top of the STR page. This goes into the ordinance itself, and these show what the most recent changes that were made. And down here is where in section F, where it talks about the caps. And this cap set limits in each council district of 60 STR permits. There are certain exemptions, such as room rentals. So if someone wants to buy a house, live here, and wants to rent out their back bedroom on the weekends, that would be a room rental. So those are not subject to the cap. We can continue to process permits for that. The main requirement there is that those units be at the 4% ratio. So we're definitely looking for those to be owner occupied. We did write in exemption to complete the permits that were under review at the time the ordinance amendment began. And then finally, if there are properties that are looking to annex into the city that have existing dwelling units, we would still issue STR permits for those. Here in number 4, it talks about when we have a waiting list for those districts that are oversubscribed, and I'll go over those in a moment. The other thing to note is that the change of ownership renders all STR permits null and void. There is no transfer of an existing permit to a new owner. They have to go through the process themselves, and if there is a waiting list, they unfortunately are sitting on that. So that is what the ordinance currently says. This website also has a link to a dashboard right here, conveniently highlighted in green. And this is going to open up the STR dashboard, which shows, once it opens up, a map of the city here. And this gives you can't zoom in on this to find exactly where the STRs are, but it does give you an idea of the distribution, and you can zoom in. The other thing that Ryan helpfully showed us this morning, I had not noted before, is you can actually search directly for an address here. to find out which council district a property is in. So this takes you to a townhome, and then if you click on it, it will tell you that this color is District 3. So now you know which council district you're in. And then here, this is a chart that is showing how many valid STR permits we have per council district, how many are in review currently, and then if permits are still available in that council district, that number is shown in the red bar. For those that are underneath the line, those are the council districts that have more than 60 permits currently issued. And so we will not be able to issue new STR permits in those districts, other than those exemptions I mentioned earlier, annex properties, applications that were in process, and room rentals. So for these that is right now currently Council District 5, which is on generally on the Ashley River. Oh shoot, a little too far there, sorry. It's this pinkish color here, also including Dorchester Terrace and the Wayland. Then there is Council District 8 and Council District 10. Those are the council districts shown here in green and blue. I believe this is 8 and this is 10. That is generally Park Circle, and they are, both council districts have substantially more than 60 permits. So it'll be a while before we'll be able to issue additional permits in those council districts. To do so, this, first of all, we would need to get below 60 units with current permits in those council districts. So for example, in Council District 8, 125 permits have to expire or be canceled by the owners or be lost by revocation. And then at that time, we would go to the applications which are on a waiting list. So anyone who is applying now generally has to wait for 150 permits to burn through before they'd be able to get a new permit.
And those applications will be taken, the submitted applications will be taken in like the order that they come. Is that accurate? Yeah. Or
yes,
and then if you contact the person, they're like, oh, I don't care about it anymore, I don't want to do it, or whatever else, then you'll move to the next person on the list.
Yes, I think that's true. I'm not even sure how quickly we will ever get to these.
Well, yeah, I was looking at like more of the 11 over here on Council District 5 is probably where you're going to get to on that overage.
Yeah, so once 8 of these burn off, then we'll go to these 11 and we'll move through those in the order they were submitted.
Why will, like, say 6 or 7, they have so many submitted applications? How long does that application take to turn around? Why are there so many like submitted that haven't been approved yet, I guess is the question.
Usually that's when somebody has applied and they've submitted some information, but we've sent them an email and said, we need you to provide more information. We need you to explain, why the ownership is different from what you said, or we've asked for more pictures or something like that. So sometimes it's that we're waiting for them to provide more information. Sometimes people go through that part of the process. They get to the inspections, but they're not ready for the inspectors to come and take a look at their unit. And so that process sometimes drags out over a couple of months.
And they're not transferable, right, at sale. That's what making sure people just want to clarify that.
That's correct. That's in, I believe, the ordinance that we showed. I think it's in section F, if anyone needs to refer to it. Or sorry, H, change of ownership. We can do some limited things. If there's a trust that's being created or dissolved, if someone's creating an LLC and putting that property into it, we can reissue the permit with that new name, but there has to be a direct connection between the current property ownership and the new name that's being put in. And also, if there's an inheritance, we can work through that, or if there's any kind of like a death by a joint owner or something like that, we can reissue the permit in that. But there is no transferring of an existing permit to a brand new owner.
And you guys have not, I would assume, not thought through. One of the questions is one I had as well. What happens in 2032 or 2031, whenever the census is done and they go to reapportion the lines again, the council district lines? Because, very rarely do we see zoning or, this kind of thing based on council districts, so which change every 10 years.
Right, and when those new districts are finalized, probably within a month or two of that happening, there will be a new ordinance to adjust this to the current
Okay.
council districts. We're aware that that will need to be touched again.
Okay.
So that's generally where our STRs are, as you can see in this upper left.
And for the pre-existing, obviously that's where you get so many over the cap, say in 8 and 10, right? You're over 60 because those were pre-existing. Was there I'm getting a question about the inspection process for those pre-existing. They apply for that that permit, I guess, on the or you already had all that done, I guess is the question. And then the house pre-existing moved over.
So
Like, did you already have a permit process before this, or
right,
did you
so
go out? Did everyone come in already?
So yeah, the city passed the STR enabling ordinance, I want to say in 2022. We started permitting in 2023. We had a big run, particularly around Park Circle. So all of these that are existing are mainly they've been in place for a year or two, and they've renewed each time. So that's how we ended up so far over the cap, because the cap didn't exist at the time. It was just if you had a lawfully established dwelling unit, you didn't have a HOA that prohibited, or any kind of covenants and restrictions that prohibited the use. And you went through the steps, you got an STR permit. So those properties have continued to renew, and they will likely continue to renew into the future. And that's why those are so over the cap, because cap didn't exist at the time they got their initial permits.
And when you renew, is there an inspection, or is it just when you get the new permit?
We have a self-inspection checklist that folks have to walk through. They have to provide a picture of their fire extinguishers to make sure that those have been recently serviced. They have to just affirm that they still have safe routes of ingress and egress. They have to answer probably 20 questions, maybe 25.
Even for the new permit, it's all self-inspection.
No, for new permits, our inspectors do go out the first time.
And then the reapplication every year is a self-inspection.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's generally what I had on short-term rentals, and I don't know if you want to take questions now from.
Yeah, I mean, I think some are some of the questions I see here that they are with so many in the queue, it's like, are you still seeing, and over the permits, are you still seeing a lot of these submitted applications come in 8 and 10, and why you're just going to back up? But I think most people will probably just stop submitting applications at some point when you're 125 over the cap, right?
Right. I mean, there are occasionally, probably get 2 or 3 a month that just want to go ahead and get their place in line, but definitely the permit volume has slowed down in those districts, particularly 8 and 10. For 5, people are still hopeful that maybe enough will burn off that they could get to a permit, but 8 and 10, it's really dramatically slowed for sure.
For those that, I mean, do y'all feel pretty comfortable that you've have them all, like the ones that maybe never come out of the woodwork to be permitted, or how can someone report one that is, I guess that's kind of the question, ones that weren't that they see that do not meet the code?
Well, we have an email address called strconcerns@northcharleston.org. If folks are seeing units operating without permits, we do know that there are plenty of units operating in the city that do not currently have permits. It is hard to keep track of them because they turn their listings on and off. They go from platform to platform. We have basically one full-time person who's trying to track those folks down, but you actually have to find who the owner is and then try to find that person to get them to come into compliance. For those who are, in council districts that aren't the oversubscribed districts, and generally when our staff reach out to those owners and say, hey, we see you're operating without a permit, most of them will come in and do the right thing at that point. But particularly in districts 8 and 10 and 5, I mean, it's a little bit of whack-a-mole. We will get them to shut down for a little bit and then they're back up. So we're doing our best, but it is tough to keep up with the folks who are, they know all the tricks and they're using them.
And your definition of a short-term rental is 28 days or less?
It's 29.
29 days or less. Okay.
Yeah, and that is also, if anyone needs to refer to a period not to exceed 29 days per rental.
Okay. So anything over that is just considered a monthly rental and is not affected by this ordinance.
That's correct. Yes, and we do have some people who are doing that. They're listing on it on Airbnb, but they're listing for a period of 30 days or more. I will say, where we sometimes miss that is something that they have put in their listing, and so if your membership get clients who are saying I'm getting a letter from the city, a violation letter, but I'm only listing for 30 days or more, just let them know, we're human. Sometimes we miss that they've done that. Just to respond and send a link to their listing and just say, please see the end of this paragraph, which says 30 days or more. And usually we will say, yep, you're right. Sorry about that. So, we're not trying to come down on people who are listing more than that. It's just sometimes with everything going on, we sometimes miss those.
Yeah, and if they're on one of those platforms, just make sure that they're on the back end not able to book for less than 30 days, right?
Right, but also just, hopefully it says that in the text of the listing as well. So if they get any kind of violation letter from us, just respond and let us know. We'll make sure that goes away. We just occasionally, with everything going on, we will miss one or two of those.
And what is the penalty to the non-permitted short-term rental owner?
Well, initially we drop off a notice at the property, and then then next time our enforcement officer shows up, he's going to start talking to the tenants or the guests who are there. Eventually we'll get to a place where we will try to serve a ticket to the property owner. Or if there's a party going on at the property or something like that that's not permitted in an STR, we can have a ticket on the current guest as well. So we don't want to get there. We try to start with a quick notice, and hopefully people will come into compliance at that point. But there are some folks who will never respond to us, and it becomes a point where we have to maybe look at doing some type of violation letter to the person who's there, because once they start letting the owners know they're getting that tends to bring people in to try to come into compliance at that point.
All right, and question from, if you could just navigate, Andrew, back to the home page over on one of the other tabs and show them how to get to the dashboard from the home page, other than the direct link, which I also put in the chat for everyone.
Okay. So I can do that real quick. If you're just at our regular homepage, sorry, let me see if I can get that. You just go up into the right-hand corner. There's a search box, and you type in short-term rental, or mistype it as I do. And then down here we have a list of results. We click on that. And then here where it says in green, the permits issued available in each district are here. That sends it to the dashboard.
And the permits you're doing yearly permits, right?
Yes. All of our permits expire on February 28th of the year after they were issued.
Okay, that's the question that I think people were getting to. So, okay.
Yeah.
So by March 1st, they need to have the new permit in hand for the next year.
They need to have at least applied for the renewal. It took us a while to work through the renewals, but if they had made an application, they were in good standing as of February 28th. But that's the thing to remember, is that they all expire the year after they were issued. So if you get your STR permit on December 15th, it's only good till February 28th of that year. So some people think that it's going to be good for a year from that, but no, our permits all expire on the same date, so that we can work through those renewals and then have a good grasp of how many permits are available. It's not rolling.
And couple questions. This is, do you have an idea of how many people don't renew their permits every year, or if you had a rough guess? I think somebody asked on that end.
It's very few,
Okay.
unless occasionally we have people who say, no, I've gone to long-term rentals and I'm not going to be renewing it. Or we find that people have sold the property, and the other property owner, the new property owner has not come in for a permit. There's no help for that new property owner. They need to have gotten a permit. They can't operate under the old permit. So when we get to renewals, we look at those ones that maybe haven't applied. We're going to check the ownership at that point. If they're no longer owned by the person who had the permit, then it's that STR, the lawful use of that unit for STR is ended. And so we then void out those permits.
All right, and then I think the question around renting the room is, if you are renting the room, do you have to go through the permit process? We know you're not part of the 60, but do you still have to go through the permit process?
Yes, because you will be listing on these platforms, and you'll need a permit number to do so lawfully. Like I said, we allow the room rentals, but you have to be an owner occupant to do that, and you can only have one STR permit. So let's say you have a house with 4 bedrooms and you want to STR 2 of them. You can't get 2 STR permits to do 1 red room each. You get an STR permit for 2 rooms.
So you basically would have to do 2 rooms at a time. You couldn't do 2 single rooms to different people in different transactions.
Right. We only allow 1 STR per dwelling unit.
And I know you're going to get into the zoning
So-
changes on accessory dwellings units. Well, for ADUs on STRs, how about that? How does that handle?
As long as you have a lawfully established dwelling unit, so that means we can look in the tax record and see when it was built, or we can look in our permitting system and see that it was built pursuant to a permit. Then that's a lawfully established dwelling unit. It is eligible for a short-term rental permit, as long as it is not in one of the oversubscribed districts. Now, the ADUs that Andrew's going to talk about in a few minutes, our new ADU ordinance, that's something different. That is a new allowance that has just been created for lots. But those particular units, which will be created pursuant to that ordinance, those are not eligible to be used as STRs. That's part of the ADU ordinance. That is one of the conditions, that they're not eligible for short-term rentals.
Okay. And then what about a grace period for those who missed the February 28th deadline? Is that a hard deadline, or if they come back for renewal in March or April?
The
How does that work?
renewals, we worked really hard to get in contact with everyone who had a permit. And so at this point, we did extend a grace period. That grace period is done.
So if you're in 5, 9, or 5, 8, or 10, tough luck, right? Basically, if you miss that deadline, and the others, you could just reapply.
You could reapply for any of the districts, but yeah, for 5, 8, and 10, you're sitting on the waiting list. We sent, and this was, we sent out emails. We have it on the website. It was covered in the news. So almost everyone who had a permit did reapply.
All right. It looks like we got all the questions on short-term rentals from you guys, and really thankful. I find this dashboard to be one of the most helpful of all the people I've seen around the region and the country, quite honestly, as I've worked on these issues all over the country at this point, on what those are, and even the complaints seen there of parking, trash, all that sort of stuff is really helpful on what those complaints are. But one more question before we move on to the other stuff, I guess. So you could rent under the owner occupied thing, as long as you're owner occupied, you can rent as many rooms out of that house at one time as you could. So if you had a 4 or 5 bedroom house, you could rent a 5 bedroom house, you could rent 4 bedrooms out, even under owner occupied or not.
Yes, you
As
can.
one rental though.
Right, one rental, and it has to be at least one fewer bedroom than there are bedrooms in the house, because you're supposed to be in one of them.
Yes. All right, great. And then Andrew, and I think you guys are going to move on to kind of some other zoning updates, especially around accessory dwelling units.
Yeah, so and back in January, we amended section 5.1 of our zoning ordinance to allow accessory dwelling units as a conditional use. I'm going to show you how to search for that and just kind of go through the ordinance with you all, so you know what you can advise your client. So this is our recently adopted amendments ordinance page. It captures all of the new amendments that have not yet been codified. Some of these have been codified by now, but for the most part, this is where you'll find the new sections. So this section right here is for the ADU amendments. So starting off, we did add a definition for accessory dwellings. And something to note here is that it is only for detached accessory dwellings. So we do not allow attached ADUs, which some other municipalities do. And then just quickly going through it. So in R1, our single family district, accessory dwellings are a conditional use. And the way that works is, so long as you meet the conditions, it is a permitted use. So the first one, it's not located within the historic district or the conservation district. We added that simply because accessory dwelling units are already conditional use in those overlay districts, provided they're above a garage. So we didn't want to impose additional requirements on them. The next one, lot size of 4,500 square feet. That is our minimum lot size for conforming single family lots. And that was added because there were some concerns about small lots in Union Heights, for example, where there are 3,000 square foot lots and how you would fit an ADU on there. We didn't really have any issues adding that because as we'll get into with the setbacks and there's an additional parking space required, you probably would never fit in a detached ADU on a 3,000 square foot lot anyways. So it doesn't really affect too much, to be honest. No more than one ADU per lot is permitted. That's pretty self-explanatory. The size requirement is 2/3 the size of the principal dwelling or 800 square feet, whichever comes first. However, we do, and we'll get into the height restrictions in a moment, but we do allow existing accessory structures such as garages to be converted to ADUs regardless of the height and setback nonconformities, but that does not apply to the size nonconformity. As mentioned, you also need one additional parking space. So with a primary dwelling, that'd be required 2, and then the ADU requires 1. So for a total of 3 9x19 parking spaces are required. And then, as Eileen stated, ADUs approved under this section are not eligible for short-term rental permits.
So with one off-street parking, how many off-street parking spots are required in R1 already for a regular house?
So it would be 2 for the primary dwelling and then 1 for the accessory dwelling.
So you'll need a total of 3 off-street parking.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's just given the size requirements. That's kind of why a 3,000 square foot lot, for example, in Union Heights, most people have trouble fitting 2 parking spaces. So moving on quickly to the setbacks. they follow similar setbacks to accessory structures such as sheds or garage. So we don't allow them in the front yard, and we only allow them in the side yard if they are if there's no other option, essentially. So so if, like, for example, there's an easement or the home is positioned very far in the back of the property, to the point where you wouldn't be able to fit an ADU or an accessory structure in the rear, the zoning administrator could allow it to go into the side yard. But if there's an option to put it in the rear, you have to put it in the rear, essentially. And then onto the setbacks and the height. So same as other accessory structures, 3 feet from any interior property line, so side or rear property line, 6 feet from any other structure. And then the height is no taller than the primary dwelling, or if it's a 1-story primary dwelling and you're proposing an ADU above a garage, then we would allow 24 feet max.
Question about the parking spots. Someone asked about maneuverability. I guess, tandem parking, things like that, I guess is what they're getting at about the 3 parking spots. Is just off street and you can do tandem or not, or for that 3rd spot.
Yeah, correct. We do allow tandem. And so there's no driveway aisle requirement. So you could just do 3 nose to tail in a row if you wanted to.
So if you can fit 4 cars, kind of 2 next to each other, 2 behind, that meets the requirement.
Yeah.
Even if there's no more driveway left.
Correct.
Okay.
And we also don't have a material requirement. So if there was area in the backyard or something that you wanted to be available as a parking spot, as long as you can show that there's dimensionally room for that parking space in the yard, that would be allowed as well. Just a few other quick notes. It's pretty straightforward ordinance, but what's not mentioned in here that most of you are probably pretty familiar with is the HOAs. So just, worth mentioning that we do have quite a few HOAs in North Charleston, and I'm not super familiar with their covenants exactly, but I'm sure plenty of them will prohibit accessory dwelling units. And then also so this only applies to R1, R2, R3, and then B1 and B2, so where we allow single family homes. But if it was within a PDD, these conditions would not apply. So for example, Watson Hill allows accessory dwelling units. They have their own requirements under that section. And there may be some other PDDs out there as well. So it's just case by case basis.
Oh, because they're not in R1, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. It's a different zoning district. And that's pretty much all I had, honestly.
So questions about ADUs, I guess, to tiny homes, right? Does North Charleston allow kind of tiny homes which are different than ADUs, or how have y'all approached that?
So, so one thing I'll touch on is, so we would, currently, before we have the ADU ordinance, we didn't allow accessory dwellings. What we did allow was 2 primary dwellings. So for example, if your minimum density requirement is 4,500 square feet, if you had a 9,000 square foot lot, we would allow you to build 2 homes on that lot, provided you could meet the setbacks and the parking requirements and things like that. So as far as tiny homes go, I believe it depends how you permit it. If you come in as a primary dwelling, then you have to meet the primary dwelling requirements, which is 2 parking spaces, normal setbacks.
And also, I mean, I think the difference is too what you're classifying a tiny home, right? Because it has to be fixed to the land too, probably.
Right, so we would allow tiny homes in the city, but mainly the method of construction is what controls. So if it's built on like a mobile home platform, then we're going to allow them anywhere we allow a mobile home. or if it's, if it's site-built tiny home, that's possible perhaps, that they would be allowed anywhere a home is allowed. If it's an RV, we don't allow tiny homes that are built on RV platforms unless they're in, we have a couple of mobile home parks that do allow those on, mobile home lots. But we don't allow those as principal uses of residentially zoned properties.
And prefab stuff that's not mobile homes, more modular kind of thing, the prefab stuff, that's considered site built, right?
Right, modular is allowed anywhere. A regular site-built home would be allowed, but we always caution people before they go and put money down on any kind of unit, whether they're being told it's a modular or being told it's a mobile home or whatever they're being told, to get the information about it. Check with us before they put money down, because we've had people get burned where they put money down and turns out that what they're being told or what they're hearing is different from what our ordinance would allow. So we encourage people to please reach out to us and get us to give an approval, some type of written approval before they put money down and put it at risk.
Along that same line, if you are calling planning departments, we recommend, saying what your plans are, saying, I want to build another dwelling. What are my options? Because, whether you're building a second primary dwelling or an ADU, the requirements could be different. So.
And people often, as with everything, people hear the question that they're asked. So if you ask about building an ADU, we're probably going to answer the question based on this ordinance that we're looking at now. But there are, as Andrew mentioned, some other opportunities where it's a PDD that allows them, or the historic, the North Charleston overlay, the Old North Charleston neighborhood district allows an ADU in the form of the garage, the apartment over a garage. So it's always better, whether it's us or any other planning department, to say, I have this property, I'd like to build another dwelling unit. Can you tell me if I have any options here? Rather than asking specifically about an ADU, because you probably will get better and more comprehensive information if you ask for just building another dwelling unit and how that.
Okay, I think most people would be concerned about saying building another dwelling unit because they would think that you're trying to build two houses and not a accessory structure, right?
But sometimes that is the option that you have. And so
Okay.
you may not meet these requirements here for some reason, but it might turn out that your lot is 10,000 square feet. And so by right, you have the right within our the lower part of North Charleston to build two primary dwelling units on that property.
I guess one question I would have, and I don't see here in ADUs, but it might just be assumed or the case is ADUs would have to stay in common ownership.
Yes, because they're on the same lot.
But do the two primary dwellings on one lot have to stay in common ownership as well?
We wouldn't allow a subdivision, but you could do horizontal property regime.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Well, yeah, usually on a typical, 45 by 100 square foot lot, you wouldn't have enough street frontage for subdivision. I mean, it's all case by case. And if you can meet the minimum lot standards, we could allow subdivision. That's correct.
And we can't control for horizontal property regime. So if someone wanted to create that and can lawfully do so in South Carolina, then I don't think we have any say in that.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if a home is sold with the existing ADU, it's permitted, right? So they don't have to come back and get a permit for that, right? But any probably rental of that would have to be permitted, right?
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
Short-term rental, yeah. You don't have long-term rental permits.
Correct.
Okay. But because it meets the definition of the zoning code now by making this change, so that ADU stands in the next owner.
Right. Once you build the dwelling unit, you've gone through the permitting process, you get on the back end a certificate of completion, a certificate of occupancy, then that's a lawfully established dwelling unit moving forward. There's no need to come back for any kind of approvals on that unless you're trying to, well, if you're doing any more work in the unit, we want you to look for permitting. Or if you're trying to do it as a short-term rental, obviously you need a short-term rental permit. But
now, if you built the ADU as far as this, the new owner, do they have to use it as a dwelling unit, or would they be able to use it as, an office or whatever else as well?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't force anybody to use their building in any, proactively for a specific use.
So,
We can prohibit what they can do in it, but
yeah, you could, I mean, you could use it for personal use, sure, but if you're operating a business or something like that, obviously you'd be limited to the allowable uses in R1.
mhm.
Right.
Like you can't have customers coming to your property and things like that in R1.
Right. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for this today. I appreciate you guys stepping in for Tim and taking care of this. And thank you guys for being willing and presenting this. Like I said, the short-term rental dashboard is one of the best around for figuring out your processes now. So thank you.
Did you want us to talk about the Unified Development Ordinance?
Oh yeah, please go ahead. I thought y'all were, Adrian said y'all were done. If y'all have a unified development, go ahead.
Okay, so the city is currently looking forward to starting a process of developing a unified development ordinance. And that would bring together, it would be a rewrite of our zoning code, our subdivision regulations, and our road standards. It is a large project. We recently released the request for proposals. We had 5 submittals come in. We are in the process of scoring those, but are hopeful that we will be able to award that contract soon. And we will be starting the process of having some public meetings, and then starting that process of rewriting the zoning code soup to nuts, because we have a zoning ordinance that was adopted from another jurisdiction in 1974, and we've tinkered with it through time, and it works to get done some things, but we're hopeful that a new ordinance could include things like transit-oriented development along Rivers Avenue to encourage more density there, more commercial uses, more mixing of uses, definitely more dense housing along that corridor. Also, just a document that would be more user-friendly, and it would include more diagrams to explain how to measure things, what we're trying to accomplish. So that it will be a pretty substantial effort, but we're hopeful that we'll have that done in the next 2 years or so, and look forward to remaking what North Charleston can be moving forward.
All right. And how can people keep up with that process? I'm sure you'll have a kind of a portion of your website kind of dedicated to that as it goes along.
I imagine we will when we get that effort kicked off. We're not quite there yet, but really hope to be there in the next 1 to 3 months with some type of forward-facing presence on that.
And public engagement will certainly be a large part of this process. So definitely keep your eyes and ears open for advertisements about engagement opportunities.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for today and taking that time and answering everyone's questions. I appreciate it. And if they have general questions, like, hey, just need help understanding the dashboard, I guess, who do they reach out to, or where do you start with the planning department? Do you all suggest phone call, email, and where do you kind of start in the working with the planning department in North Charleston?
Strongly would ask them to send an email first, because oftentimes the questions you have are going to be property specific. So we're going to need to look at what the zoning is, what the surrounding context is, what the ordinance says, and then we can answer that email at 6 o'clock at night, so you're getting that information, versus a call when we're in a meeting we can't pick up. So I would start with an email, and if you're not getting a response, give us a call.
An email to where?
So for if it's anything to do with STRs, send it to strconcerns@northcharleston.org. It's a catch-all. It goes to 3 staff members who deal with STRs, and someone will hopefully get you an answer quickly. Otherwise, a call to the planning department, to me or to Andrew, and our numbers are available on the employee directory on the city's website.
All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.